Top of the morning to you. Happy Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the Pitchline Chronicles. I am Uncle Taz. I'm here with Robinho and Donald. And believe me, I'm sure we could all agree the Yankees could sure use some Irish luck right now, and steer it more towards Clark Schmidt's way. As you know, we try to figure out what the rotation is going to be going into the opening week, as the season starts on Thursday. And he was able to make his start. It was so, but not, nothing to really panic about. But then he gets pulled from yesterday's start with an issue with his shoulder, his throwing shoulder to be specific. And when you're coming off of a cranky back that starts to cheer up a little bit, sometimes you get these issues where, when you have a back issue, as I've had for a long time, a sore back, it can really linger into other issues because you're not being as mobile. So it causes other things to kind of tense up a little bit. So for me personally, I'm not really too concerned about it, especially that I'm not running him for testing. So if it was really anything severe, he'd be under the on the MRI table, and they'd be really running him through the gauntlet. But it is a concern of, are we looking at a repeat of Rodon's first year as he was having those back issues where he just never came into his own during the season, and there were ups and downs. It was really a roller coaster season. The Yankees, with their offense, cannot afford to have a pitcher in the starting rotation on that roller coaster of good start, bad start, skip start. So it is something that I am concerned about, but I think that it's just going to be one of those years for Schmidt. And if he's able to get into a routine where he's able to completely rest on his off days, it might not linger the way that people are expecting it to. Rob, how are you feel? What's your opinion on this whole thing with Schmidt? Because he was looking like he was going to be like really in the middle of the rotation, especially after Cole went down. There was going to be that shuffle. What does this mean for the Yankees going forward?
They're practically one more injury away from it being a full-on panic. Schmidt is important to this rotation, even though he's not an ace. He's a guy that's going to give you 5 to 6 innings, and he's going to keep you in a ball game, give up 3 runs or less. On a bad day, he might give up 4. He's very reliable. He's just, unfortunately, another one of the long list of injuries that we continue. And we knew about him early on in the spring. He had the injury, and he finally makes his start. I'm more concerned about what the heck these guys are doing in between their games and in between their throwing sessions, because remember last year when Cole said he couldn't recover correctly? That's kind of the same thing we're dealing with Schmidt right now. And yeah, and the Rodon comparison to 23 is pretty similar because he was dealing with the back, and then that led to the arm, and he had like a leg injury or something. So I hope it's not the same thing. He's going to throw a bullpen session today, and they're going to see how he feels after that. But the fact that he's only made one spring start, I wouldn't count on him being part of this opening day roster. And all of a sudden, a rotation depth that was relatively deep when Stroman was the number 6. Now Stroman becomes the number 3, and you're going to be down potentially 3 guys on the IL to start the year, or you probably will be. It's concerning because the rotation was supposed to be the thing that kept us afloat with the offense that may or may not be good. It has the potential to be good, but it's on paper, it's kind of like, there's definitely holes there. And now the rotations become a major question mark because you don't know what Carrasco is going to be. He's been great this spring, as has Will Warren, but are they going to carry that over? Is Marcus Stroman going to be the first half Stroman again, or is he going to be second half Stroman? Is Rodon going to be healthy? Is Rodon going to be effective at the top of the rotation? The only one that I'm not really concerned about is Max Fried. So all of a sudden, what was a massive strength has become a very, very alarming and eye-opening question mark that the Yankees are going to have to find a way to navigate through. Fortunately for them, in the past, they've been able to fight through these kind of things. Somehow, whenever they suffer injuries to the pitching staff, they seem to fight through it and find a way to make it work. But it's like every day that passes, we take another hit to our depth. It's not just the 3 starters in the rotation. Like, Brubaker, Chase Hampton, Clayton Beater, and there's other guys that I'm missing as well that have been hurt throughout the spring that would be part of our depth. And all of a sudden, Allen Winans is our number 6 starter. So it's concerning. We need Clark Schmidt to be healthy. Of course, that's the first thing. You got to make sure he's okay. But now it's a shoulder problem on top of a back problem. How effective can he really be while he's barely thrown this spring? And it's concerning. From last week, I wasn't overly concerned. Now I'm like, we lose 3/5 of our rotation. It's definitely it's something that's going to make you really, really worried going into the first few months of the season, and potentially down the road, it's going to get even worse if more guys go down.
Donald, your thoughts?
So Brian Hoke, Schmidt will not start against Blue Jays due to shoulder soreness and is not getting all the way back to how he normally would, according to Aaron Boone. The back is one thing, but when you get to shoulder soreness, that's when your eyebrows get raised a little bit. There's a good point about if you got an injured back, if you got a bad back, then that's going to lead to other muscle injuries around. So that could be partly why that shoulder is now barking. That tends to be how it happens, especially with pitchers. If you've got kind of a bad back, then maybe it's going to lead to maybe an arm issue, a shoulder issue, or this or that. It's not great. Not a great sign. It isn't a great sign. I'm not really sure, like, how healthy Schmidt is right now. So with the back and the shoulder now, he hasn't really pitched in spring at all. Don't think you're probably going to see him much in spring, the rest of spring. So now we're in certainly a concerning spot. Still, I think of all the issues that the Yankees have, I still trust Matt Blake's pitching factory to pull together some decent starters out of their ass. It's just your pitching was supposed to be that much better than your offense, thus making up for the loss of offense this year. Now that's gone. And now you're like, well, where is the strength in this team? And that's a legit concern. What is the strength in this team? What is our MO going into each year, in each game? Last year our strength was, Judge and Soto, that. Now that's gone. What is our strength this year? Because it was supposed to be our starting pitching. Now that's Shaw.
Well, now it's the back end of the bullpen.
Is it the back end of the bullpen?
Yeah.
Well, that's not great. That ain't great. So, Sean says, our bullpen as always, and Judge being Superman. You can't be Superman every year.
No, with the back end of the bullpen, if they're able to, somehow get to the end of the game with the lead, if you have your 7, 8, 9 pitches as Heel, Weaver, and Williams, that does give you a vote of confidence that there's going to, they're going to be able to pull out the win, because those guys have been very effective in their roles. And you may be able to insert a different name here or there, but I think your 8-9 is set as Weaver and Williams. It's really what the rotation is going to look like is really become what the issue is, because you're going to have, like they already announced, how are we feeling about Rodon getting the opening day start over Fried? Because I kind of, it almost looked, as soon as Cole went down, it just seemed like Fried was just going to slot into that number 1 starter role, which you'll have that ace title in the rotation, but not to have him start the opening day. As far as, is it that big of a deal? when you look at the long term of the whole season.
No, he's staying on his routine. If you break, even one day can make a drastic difference. If you push
Yeah.
him up a day, then he has to work a little bit harder. And if he throws his arm out, we're done. So no, it's perfectly fine. They had to do it last year. Remember, Nestor started opening day because Cole went
Nestor
down.
was last year, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal. Anyone trying to make it a big deal, it's not. Carlos Rodon was on a better routine to get the opening day start over Max Fried, especially because there's so many off days. I think we play one, then we're off, and then we play two more. So it lines up with the way he's been pitching in the spring, so he'll be ready to go for game two. He was always going to pitch game two anyway. Why break him off his routine? Pitchers are creatures of habit. Do we want to break that? I don't. If something happens to Max Fried or happened to Max Fried because they pushed him up a day, everyone would be yelling at Aaron
outrage.
Boone. Yeah, like, why'd you do that? Should have kept him on his routine. So now that he's keeping him on his routine, everyone's like, why are you not making him start game one? So it's really, I don't see it's a big deal. It's game two out of 162. I think people will be okay if it's not Max Fried starting.
Yeah, I think it's more, he was the big free agent signing, after the Soto pivot. So I think there is, from the fan perspective, that anticipation to see what he's going to deliver in a game that actually will have meaning towards the record. And so I think that's more of what it is, as opposed to people stepping back and just saying, look, it's just a matter of, a routine, making sure that he doesn't get thrown off, because like we were saying, it's only opening day. You could see, like, if they were all rested and you had one game to win to get to the playoffs at the end of the year, then it becomes more of a debate, not for opening day. I think some people like to make too much out of nothing. Donald, what do you think?
Yeah, opening day starter is purely just like in name only. It doesn't really matter, really, because there's 162 games. I know that everyone gets excited for opening day, but there's 162 games, and the Yankees have to be cognizant of that. So it doesn't really matter. Even if he's pitching game 5, it doesn't matter. Of the season, it doesn't matter. It's purely just a title. It's just the way that it's worked out in terms of his schedule and rest days. So yeah, I mean, I genuinely do not care. He's still the ace.
I think the biggest concern is who pitches the third game after Fried. I think that's the biggest question mark that we're going to have right now.
Right.
I think that's Stroman. If I had to guess, it would be Rodon, Fried, Stroman, probably Carrasco, Warren. I think that's how it seems like that's how they've been going. Unless Schmidt is okay and he can maybe make a start in the second turn, because with all the off days, they might go 4-man to start things off, and then if Schmidt's okay, then maybe he can go. But I'm starting to think he's not going to be ready, so more than likely going to be just to be safe, an IL stint, and then it'll be probably Cookie the fourth game, but it's more than likely Stroman game 3. Yeah, he said he's a starter, and he said he's not competing. Well, here's his chance to prove it.
Yeah, no, the pressure is, I think, of all the guys in the rotation, I think the pressure is on Stroman. Because he has to prove that he's worth to, whether it's us or another team, that if he's going to pitch for the whole season, that 140 inning mark will be a worthy investment. So I think that's where he's going to have, a lot to say, as far as his performance of whether he's going to, what his role is going to be in next year with any said team. So I think that it's going to be, like you said, I think the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think it is going to be obviously Rodon starting the season, Fried, then it's going to be Stroman, Carrasco, and Warren. I would just put Schmidt on the IL. Just put him give him a short IL stint. Don't let him feel the pressure of having to rush, to make his next start. Just let his body rest up, because the rest is what's going to do the best for him.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll have to wait and see. He's throwing his bullpen session like right now, where he just did.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see what they say after that. If he feels okay, then maybe there's nothing to really worry about. But I still think just to be safe, because he did miss a lot of time, he barely pitched. He's thrown one game and nothing but bullpen sessions and simulated games. So just to be safe, you might put him on the IL to start the year, and then 2 weeks. You can probably survive 2 weeks without him, but you just hope it's nothing too serious. That's really all you can hope for at this point. It's just, but I'm not even surprised. Like, I saw that he was dealing with the shoulder injury. I just went, okay, what else? Like that's how numb to it I am now. Like every other day, there's another pitching injury. So I'm more concerned about why they haven't thought about changing this training staff up, because how many injuries are we getting to our pitching staff? The list goes on and on now. It's like every other day. Even bullpen guys. I saw Ken's comment earlier about the bullpen's probably going to be overused. Yeah, because we're already down a few guys from that as well. Leiter's been dealing with some stuff. He said he thinks he's going to be okay to go, but even then, even when they say they're all right, they're out for 2 months. So that's going to take a hit. We've already taken a hit from the bullpen depth. F. Ross is dealing with some stuff. Our bullpen hasn't necessarily looked fantastic. Like, Cruz has looked terrible in the spring. So is he going to be reliable in the regular season? There's a lot of question marks now for what was supposed to be the biggest strength, and it's because of the injuries. And there's been so many of them, and it's just like, what are they doing with these guys after their starts that they continue to get hurt almost every other day? There's another injury. And I hate saying that because I feel like I'm going to jinx it and someone else is going to go down. But that's just kind of how camp has been for the Yankees. It's March 17th, and like 12 major league caliber pitchers are currently on the shelf. That's not normal.
It isn't normal. It doesn't. It's interesting. Did you come across Severino saying that the Yankees medical staff's good, but the Mets medical staff is next level? Excellent. I mean, that's not obviously verbatim what he said, but that's basically the gist of it, that the Mets have a better medical system than the Yankees do, better medical staff. So that flies in the face of the Yankees telling us that they have the best medical staff in baseball. Well, clearly they don't, if Severino is telling you that the Mets have a better one. So he's delighted. He was delighted with the way that he was handled by the Mets. Maybe it's something that the Yankees need to learn. The Yankees love to boast that they're the best at everything, but kind of clearly they aren't. So maybe they need to learn about what the rest of the league is doing. And but I mean, you also have to bear in mind it's spring and pitchers get hurt more often in spring because they're back to a throwing program, and in the early part, it leads to injuries. So, I mean, I kind of give them that, but this has been going on and on and on, and it's not just through spring. It's just been going on and on and on and on. Never changes, and they have a very poor regimen in terms of checking in on the guy's health, making sure they're okay. I mean, heck, they traded for Frankie Montas when he was injured. They do this stuff, man. They acquire guys that are in a walking boot. This is what they do. It's like injuries, they'll be okay. And then, oh, wait, it's not okay. I wonder why. So Schmidt is great. It's just that injuries has always been his issue. And I'm a little concerned about Schmidt because, as I mentioned the last time earlier in the show, if you got a bad back, then it leads to other muscle injuries. It's just natural that way. So if your shoulder is barking, we have to wait to see how the bullpen session goes. But it's also a couple of days after because you have to see how he recovers.
Right.
So
there is an update actually from Brian Hoke just now. He said threw 24 pitches and said he felt good, hopes to bounce back well, and is working towards being ready for the April 3rd start against Arizona. So we'll see.
Right.
Fingers crossed. But again, this is the Yankees. Anytime they're not concerned about something, like they weren't concerned about Stanton, and look at that. So
yeah.
Yep. The other thing is, real quick, just want to give a shout out to everybody that's hanging out with us this morning in the chat. You guys are the oil of the machine that keeps this channel going. So appreciate all of you. Just make sure you hit that like button. If you want to join the chat, just hit that sub button and just make sure to share this out and help the community grow. So a big shout out, a little quick roll call to Old Sarge, John the Beagle Dad, Sunil, Sean Browning, Dorn Stauber. We got Ellie, we got Spencer hanging out with us this morning. We got Sunil, Stephen B, Jonathan. FJ's hanging out with us. Ken was it. Ken, we got Ken hanging out as well. Lou, always good to see you. I know you like to kind of push a little bit, but it's all good. We all know you secretly have the Anthony Volpe jersey hanging up in your room. TC Steels, Dev Finch. Shout out to everybody hanging out with us this morning. The other player, because it's been a couple days since we've been able to talk to you, is the other player that really hasn't had the best luck. It goes back to Stanton. Now he's with the reports with his calf. I heard mixed reports that he was shut down for the season, and then there was another report he was coming back Memorial Day. Here's another. This is another example what Rob was just alluding to. The way they disclose these injuries and these timelines for these injuries are so half-assed. I think that's part of the biggest problem the Yankees have is that, not the communication with the players, but also the way the reporting comes out to the fan base.
Yeah, they're not good with it. I don't know what else we can say about it. Like, we've been talking about this as long as we've been doing this show. We've been having these issues. Whenever they say, "Oh, we're not overly concerned," the next thing you know, the guy's out for half the season. Like, they weren't concerned about Judge's toe. They thought he would play the very next day, or at least the day after, and he was gone for like 50 games. So they don't know how to diagnose injuries. I would much rather them just come out and say, "We're gonna wait and see what the results say, and then we'll have an idea." Because they're always saying the same thing. We're not too concerned. Even if they do say they're concerned, they go, "Well, it probably won't be too long." And then next thing you know, the guy's gone for the entire season. So I think they were the most upfront about DJ's injury most recently, where they said it's going to be a little while. Like, that's the only player they were upfront about. Everybody else has been kind of like, well, we're not too concerned. Like, they weren't concerned about Cole at first, and then Cole was the one who said he's a bit worried. They weren't concerned about Stanton. And then you hear that Stanton's got 2 badly injured elbows and now a calf. So I don't know what they're waiting for. I mean, if Stanton does play this year, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I think Memorial Day is as loose as loose a timeline as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude, just a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago, I read that the dude can't pick up everyday items. And now, within a month and a bit, he's going to be hitting 100-mile-an-hour fastballs? Yeah, right. All right. I'll wait. I hope it happens, man. I really do. Because we need a righty bat, and Stanton is the man. But, geez, Lou, man. But you're right. It's exhausting. It's just like it's like a broken record. It's the same conversations that we have on loop. And the Yankees, for whatever reason, just have like a memory of a goldfish because they don't seem to do anything about it. I mean, we've been talking about the same stuff since when did we start doing this thing? Since World War II? Right, 2020, right? We've been having the same conversation since 2020, and it's on loop. It starts with injuries, and it's Stanton's timeline, and it's which pitcher is hurt, and what their timeline is, and why did we acquire this injured guy? And it's been the same conversation. And, they misdiagnosed another injury. They said he's going to be back next week. No, he's not back till next year. And it's the same stuff. And then once you get into the regular season, then we end up talking about why Brian Cashman didn't bring this guy in and that guy in, or why Aaron Boone made this bad move and that bad move. And nothing seems to change. It's the same story on loop since 2018, and it's exhausting. And this is just following the same routine every spring. All we do is talk about injuries.
Yeah,
I would love to talk about something else, but there's nothing else to talk about because the Yankees just have a very. I don't want to say that they have a terrible medical staff because we're not we're not doctors, so I don't know. But it's been going on, and I recall when Brian Cashman hired the medical staff that were. Remember where they were? They were like a freaking health spa freaking team. Remember? Remember that? That had absolutely no idea how to manage a baseball team, and then everybody got hamstring injuries and stuff like that. I mean, I'm past trusting what the Yankees' judgment is on who's a great medical team, because this looks like a mess. But they're telling us that they're the best in baseball. Well, how? Like 25% of your 40-man roster is on the freaking IL. There has to be something going on. What's going on?
Yeah, it's like that. That you go into that kid's room and there's just toys and crap everywhere, and the parent goes, how did this happen? And the kid goes, I don't know. Because they're afraid to tell the truth. That's the Yankees. They're afraid to tell us the truth because they don't want to get yelled at even more for making a mess of the situation to begin with. It's sad because all we ask for is honesty and, accountability. It really comes down to that. It really ease a lot of the frustration.
And we've repeated that line 147 times probably since 2020, so we're not going to get it. So it's the same thing every year, and again, it's just like Donald said, we're on a loop. I mean, there are some positives to talk about in the spring, like Dominguez has turned it around. Remember when people were giving up on him after 2 games, and now he's been hitting the crap out of the ball. Austin Wells looks fantastic at the top of the order. Bellinger can't stop hitting. Dom Smith's having a great spring. Ben Rice is starting to hit. Jorbit Vivas, I saw from earlier. I think it was Darren that asked it earlier. Could he potentially steal that third base job? I would like to see it because he's looked great. Alexander Vargas has had a great spring. There's a lot of guys that have come out there and been impressive, like even on the pitching side. Carrasco and Will Warren have both looked really good. So
LaGrange.
LeGrand, yeah. That prospect game was fun because both Ben Hess and Bryce Cunningham looked good. George Lombard had a hit. Spencer Jones, a little bit of an adventure in the outfield, but other than that, there was definitely some stuff to be happy about during the spring. It's just that the constant injuries overshadow everything. It's hard to get excited about this guy had a good spring game, and then the next day you hear that another pitcher is down. It's just like, obviously you're going to talk more about the injuries because this team is already having to survive so many holes in the team and question marks that another injury could potentially derail them before. If they don't survive April, it's going to be tough to win this division. They got to be able to stay afloat in the first month because remember in 23, they barely stayed afloat. And then they had a good month of May, and Judge went down. It was over. Last year, they rode the hot start to the division title. Same thing in 22. They have to at least stay 500 or better in order to keep themselves in a fighting chance for this division. So the first month is very important, and hearing these players going down every other day, it overshadows a lot of the good stuff that we have seen this spring.
That's a good point because obviously sometimes you hear people saying, it's only April, it's only May. But April and May is the only reason why the Yankees won the division last year. Yep. Because they had an all-time April and May, and it made up for the fact that they basically didn't show up post All-Star break, which is, again, something that the Yankees like to do repeatedly for the last 3 or 4 years. It's another thing on, look, you start great and then just don't bother to show up in the summer. But yeah, I mean that's it. It's important because I think this year it's going to be a battle for the division because although the Orioles have taken a step back in the offseason, they've got so much to grow, and it's going to happen really soon that they're just going to put it all together because their young team is just on the precipice of really breaking through. I'm not convinced by their manager at all, but they've got so much insane talent. They're waiting, and it could be this year. It could very well be this year. Tampa, I'll never count out. Even though it looks like they're in full rebuild, they always seem to find a way of
they get scrappy.
Yeah, Toronto. I mean, they're fighting to keep Vlad, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But the Red Sox just look like the class of the division. They really do. They've had one amazing offseason, like a brilliant offseason, and slightly envious of their offseason, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I think they're the class of the division now. So the Yankees really can't afford to take many months off. Like they need to start off pretty hot. So that's going to be interesting to see. Duran says Vlad Jr. is going on the block at the trade deadline. Yeah, let's hope so.
It could
Let's
be.
hope so. That's probably a bit of a dream because I'm not sure if the Yankees have the prospects that they can get a deal done. That they certainly want to give up for a rental. That's another thing because you have to bear that in mind. But you know what we haven't done? We haven't had a conversation with our viewers, with our commenters. So who wants to start? Rob, bring some comments up.
Well, first, thank you to Ken for gifting yet another membership because he is continuing to give. Again, it's March, Ken Claus, all year round. He continues to give. So thank you once again to Ken. If you got that membership, shout it out because Ken just keeps on giving. The gift that keeps on giving. So thank you, Ken. And once again, another shout out to Ken. The Yankees, The Ugly Truth. Make sure you subscribe to Ken's channel. He's doing some great stuff over there. So we want to help him grow his channel up so you can hear Ken's thoughts on the New York Yankees. Anyway, let's get to someone here in the comments. I don't want to go all the way back up, but I'm pretty sure it was from Darren. He talked about Jorbert Vivas, and the third base conversation is still ongoing, I think. Early on, it looked like Peraza was running away with it, but he has been
Leveled off.
bad. Let's just put it. He's been terrible, and Jorbert Vivas has been phenomenal as of late, as Cabrera. Cabrera hit a home run yesterday, so I'm wondering if the Yankees are, because they're starting to put Vivas at third a lot more now. Like I think he's playing third again today. I'm wondering if the Yankees are having those conversations that maybe his spring has been good enough for him to crack the roster, and then what does that mean for Peraza? Again, he's out of options. Do they try to dangle Peraza for some random AAA arm they can stash in case of emergency? That might be the only thing they have to do unless he has another scorching hot week that keeps him on this roster. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Vivas, though. He's hitting the crap out of the ball. I think he's hitting 500 in this spring.
I had the lineup pulled up for the game this afternoon. I could read that out before we get to more of the comments. But Ben Rice is leading off at catcher. Goldschmidt batting second. He's playing at first. Trent Grisham and center. Escara's DHing. Cleanup. You got Pablo Reyes in left field. Oswaldo Cabrera. Sorry?
He's had a good spring.
Yeah. Oswaldo Cabrera is playing second. Vivas is at third base. Batting seventh. Peraza is going to be at shortstop today. Ismail Wongawai. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. That's just.
I think it's Mungia.
Field. How is it pronounced?
I think it's Mungia. He's the fast guy. He's a freaking gazelle out there. He's incredibly quick.
All right. And then starting pitcher is going to be Brent Hedrick. He was a left-handed pitcher against Toronto. So it's – I think the fact we are starting to see Vivas a lot more at third, like we were saying, it's – I think they're leading that way. But I still think I don't want them to completely dismiss Peraza just because of the spring.
I mean, it's kind of his opportunity though to really. Yeah. If he's having a bad spring, it's hard to say, well, no, don't worry, he'll be able to hit. I mean, I still think he's good. I'm not saying this because of the spring he's a terrible player, but if you use spring for position battles, he's been outplayed by 4 different people. Let's be honest here. Cabrera, Vivas, Pablo Reyes, Alexander Vargas. I mean, these guys have all outplayed Peraza, but at the same time, you can't use his spring stats against him and be like, it's okay if Volpe struggles. It's okay that Judge can't hit in the spring. You can't. Spring stats matter, and they don't matter at the same time. It's weird how it works, but I think there's a chance that Peraza might make the team simply because he's there and they can use his defense and his speed, and maybe he hits only against lefties. But I just think with the way that other guys have played, it presents a conversation that do they go with Cabrera and Vivas as third baseman? Does Pablo Reyes take the bench role from Peraza? These are conversations that you can have because Reyes can play all over the place where Peraza is an infielder only. So it sucks because Peraza had a chance to run away with it, and he hasn't. And he's been getting a lot of at bats. He's getting opportunities almost every single day. He just hasn't been hitting after he was scorching hot to start the spring. So a lot can happen in the next 10 days. He can start hitting again, put himself right back in that conversation. It's just I don't know what they're going to do with him. If this keeps up and Vivas keeps hitting and Reyes keeps hitting, it seems like Peraza might be the odd man out, which it's a shame because it's nothing that he did wrong.
I have the list of our offensive leaders up on the screen. Thought we would go through that together. So just to answer our guy Nicholas in the Sunshine State, same as Rob, he's asking if Dominguez is picking it up. Well, you can see it right here, my guy. 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 801 OPS, 500 slug. It's decent. It's really picked up lately. So he even has a triple to his name as well. So yeah, he's actually looking pretty good. JC Escara has continued to turn heads in spring. Well, look at that, 1,000 OPS, really good. 364 batting average, 3 homers, 7 revs, so pretty good there. Goldschmidt looks like he might be a bounce back candidate. 323 batting average so far in spring. 1,000 OPS as well, 700 slug, so 3 homers, 10 revs, so he's been good. Trent Grisham, low key, very low key, because he looks like he's half asleep all the time. But he's got an 800 slug and 1,200 OPS in spring. So you're looking at the numbers. The spring numbers are actually pretty decent. Ben Rice, he's another one that's having a decent spring, 3 homers, 6. Dom Smith, coming out of nowhere, 3 homers, 12 ribs. OPS just under 1,000. So, and here's Vargas, as we were discussing. Look at this, OPS, 1,900 OPS, 3 homers, 7 ribs. Only struck out 3 times, and 14 at bat. So, yeah, it's not too bad. A couple doubles, 500 batting average, 600 OPS. Yeah, he's killing it, Vargas. We probably should have used him a little bit more than we have to this point. So he's looking good. Austin Wells is looking crazy. Liking his on base percentage of 400 up at the top, so that's decent. Cody Bellinger, as Rob mentioned, really good numbers there as well. Oswaldo Cabrera looks like he's definitely winning this third base job. 2 homers, 300 batting average, 400 on base percentage, 500 slug, and 900 OPS. Very, very good. What isn't good is, once again, Anthony Volpe, but I mean, that's not a surprise at this point. Only the Yankees seem to see things that certainly I don't. 139 batting average, 400 OPS. So he's looking like ass, but unfortunately, Peraza is actually worse. So that's not great. That isn't great. It's a shame that it's not worked out for Peraza. I actually think that our platoon third baseman is probably not on this roster right now. What would you say to that?
I mean, I feel like they could have added that several times in the offseason, though. Like Iglesias, we mentioned his name. DeJong was another name that signed for $1 million. If they wanted a platoon right, because now we're hearing about the Yankees are still looking for a right-handed bat. is Iglesias not a righty? Was DeJong not a righty? I mean, they had opportunities to get these guys for cheap. So who else could they possibly get at this point? Like last year, they got Birdie the day before opening day, but I don't think the Cubs would trade him now because they need him because Nico Horner's hurt. Who's really out there? Does someone fall through? Like, does a team have to cut somebody out of necessity? But you can use that argument. Well, Pablo Reyes I believe, is a righty, but he's hitting.
Yes.
Vargas is a switch hitter. So you can potentially. I just don't. I think it's too soon for Vargas because he's finally started to hit last year in Double-A. But maybe the righties on their roster. Everson Pereira was having a great spring, but they used that fourth option, which is why I don't think Vivas is going to make the team because they're going to use that fourth option. But maybe the answer is already on the roster. You know, I don't know what they're going to do. Who's out there that they could add?
Players always become available after.
That is true, yeah.
Certain players, not good players, but certainly players that you could have on your roster to fill out your bench. Those kind of types of dudes always tend to free up. Could be a situation where a team that's in tank mode maybe wants to cut one of their higher priced vets in order to give the playing time to someone on their AAA team or whatever that's having a good spring. That kind of stuff tends to happen. So you might see someone shake off, kind of similar to what happened with Birdie. But it won't be a particularly big contract because we know about the luxury tax. And I think the Yankees, if you're going to wait for a big acquisition, that's not going to happen until July. And you're hoping that the Yankees are still competitive at this point of July. I think that's what they're going to do. Because, say, like use Vlad for example, his $30 million will be about $13 million by the time you reach July. Do you know what I'm saying? That you owe him for the rest of that year. So they'll probably wait till July for that. So I think you might see a couple of small moves at the end of spring, fill out the bench, fill out the right-hand bat situation. But it's a shame because I'm a big Peraza fan. I really genuinely don't see much of a difference between Peraza and Volpe. Like, I really don't. Maybe I'm just a hater. I don't know, but I genuinely don't see much of a difference between the two of them. Like, Peraza's a better shortstop. Volpe is basically the same hitter, just he's got a little bit more slug. A little bit. So there's not really much value, not really much difference there. So I still stand by that they mistreated Peraza, but if this is now the second spring where Peraza hasn't shown up to win a job and he's not been able to do it, then maybe the Yankees are right that they just don't see much of a high upside there. So I stand by that. I think that the platoon for Oswaldo Cabrera is probably not in the roster right now because I don't think they like Peraza very much.
No, I think that what went wrong with Peraza is we had said in that spring with Peraza and Volpe, either one they would have chose, we were okay with. You know, if we really go, if we go back in time, I think we were all in agreement that there was no wrong answer of who was going to be the starting shortstop that season, right? But Peraza had the chance this year to reclaim that, you know, he's got to stay mantra from the fans. He started off really well. We were saying like it's a lot. Who's going to take the job from him? Well, Vivas is, and it looks like they're really leaning towards Cabrera as their everyday third baseman, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of Cabrera getting a one position. I think Cabrera's value really is as the utility player, where he could shuffle around. Can he still be that utility guy? Yeah, but you would have to have somebody to take on third base that you really feel confident they're going to get you a solid game. Vivas right now it's really the two of them.
I agree with Sean here. Peraza's quadruple A offense with Major League Glove. I think you're probably right about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the thing is, that's where Pablo Reyes comes into effect because he can play all over the place. And they've used him all over the place. But they also used Cabrera in right field yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So They've had Cabrera play multiple positions in the spring. He's played second, I think. I
supposed
know
to
he's
play
played
second
first.
today.
Yeah, he was playing first the other day. He was playing the outfield, so they're using him all over the place. I don't know. Damian just brought it up that it's probably just going to be Cabrera, but Cabrera can't hit left-handed pitching. So what do you do against lefties? Do you hope that he can just be like somewhat decent against lefties? Because that was our issue last year is we couldn't hit lefties. So you kind of need someone that can hit left. That's where I was hoping Peraza can come in. Is that Vivas, but he's also a lefty. Like they need a right-handed bat. Like if Vivas was a righty, I think he'd be a lock to make this roster right now. It's
Yeah.
all of a sudden we don't have enough righties where last year we didn't have enough lefties. So
They've overcorrected, bro.
yeah, they've overcorrected. Even though they only added one left-handed bat, but now you have Dom Smith who's playing really well. He deserves a roster spot. Ben Rice deserves a roster spot. They're both lefties, so what do you do there? You lost a big righty in Stanton. You have to replace him. Although I do think Pereira should have been given more of a shot. He still could. They still could decide to use him if they have no other choice, but all of a sudden they need a right-handed bat, and they missed several opportunities to do that this offseason. Bregman, who went to the Red Sox, was sitting there at a position of need. I'm just saying, like we know.
Are
about
you
this.
guys? Is anybody worried about Anthony Volpe like me? He's 13 strikeouts and 36 at bats. So a third of his at bats he's striking out. A 184 on base percentage, 139 batting average. I mean, you can use the spring excuse, but he's still young. You know.
Yeah.
And
No,
it's not like what I'm saying is he's not like an established veteran where you like an Aaron Judge, for instance, who's not showing up in the spring. Doesn't matter because he's going to show up in the regular season. But Volpe hasn't really got that under his belt, so and he hasn't had. Sean's not worried about Volpe. He says he's turning it on in the regular season. Dude, he's not turned on in the regular season in his career offensively.
Right.
I've been a big fan and supporter of Volpe. Sean, I can't get behind. He has not delivered what he has since that spring. I don't think he's been that guy yet. I've been trying to be patient with it, but I mean, when you look at his numbers this year, what did we say before the spring started? Volpe has got to turn up the numbers. He's got to start bringing those numbers up. And he went in the opposite direction this spring. If he has serviceable, if he's doing well in the opening series, it may be easier to just be like, all right, it was spring. Maybe he was just, trying to focus on one thing. But he's exactly, Damian. You stole my thought. He's not swinging the bat well at all. He's lost at the plate. So. It's starting to become a concern.
I can't defend his spring stats.
No.
I can't, because if I'm going to talk about Peraza having a rough spring, probably costing him a spot, you can't be like, it's okay that Volpe can't hit, because he hasn't had a good regular season offensively. He's great defensively, at least enough to win a Gold Glove one year and be nominated for another, but we've only seen his offense in spurts, and then it goes away for a while, and it doesn't seem to come back for a while. So you can't have that. That's why I keep saying his ceiling now might be. He could always get better. You never know with this sport. But his ceiling now might be league average hitter with a plus glove. And you'll take that at the bottom of the order. But right now he might not even reach that point. He needed to have a good spring. He didn't need to hit 500. He didn't even need to hit 300. But he's hit like what, one something?
It's just 167, I think.
He's got a couple of home runs, and that's about it. Like, he hasn't looked good. His swing hasn't looked good. Like, you thought that playoffs run he had would have been like, okay, do what you did in October, and you'll have a much better player in Anthony Volpe. But whatever swing was working in October, he has not brought that here in March. So it is a bit concerning. We'll see what happens in the regular season. I'll tell you this right now. He needs to be batting like 8th or 9th. At this rate,
yeah.
If he's batting like 7th, if he's batting 7th, okay, no big deal. But if they put him like 6th, 5th, 2nd, 1st, he hasn't done enough to put him at the top of the order. He needs to be right at the bottom of the order, and maybe because that's where he was hitting last year. If he does that again this year, then fine. and we'll see if we have a good player there. But right now, I'm a bit concerned with his offense because he's one of those players that needed a good spring, and he hasn't had one at all.
I have to kind of agree with Damien saying that he's way over swinging, right? And what my concern with Volpe is, he tends to lose his swing a little too often for someone who isn't really known for his bat. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he's over swinging in spring, and I think he was very similar in his rookie year. He hit a lot of home runs, but his numbers around the home runs were very, very poor because he wasn't able to get on base. He was striking out a crazy amount. And then he corrected it, but overcorrected it last year, where he had almost no power. But unfortunately, it didn't lead to him getting on base much either. It was only a slight improvement in that department. And then we know about the chicken parm incident, where Austin Wells is like, well, dude, this is the hole in your swing. I can see it right here. Here's your swing. Here's a hole in your swing. And Volpe wasn't made aware of it because, once again, the Yankees tell us that they're the best at everything, but they couldn't even figure out that he had a hole in the swing, and they needed chicken parm to figure that out with Austin Wells. So what I'm saying is I'm a little concerned because this is now almost annually now that Anthony Volpe just loses his swing, tries out a new swing. There just seems to be a little bit too many changes. Austin Wells never changes his swing. He's not changed his swing. He's got the same approach, and that's why he is now going to be leading off for the New York Yankees this year. So I think that stuff does matter. There's just too many changes, and Volpe doesn't have a consistent approach at the plate. He either swings through his shoes to try and hit home runs, or he overcorrects but messes up his approach. It's been happening too often. It really does. And that's what, for me, lowers his ceiling. I just don't know. If he can provide league average offense, I'd be shocked at this stage. But I hope he does. I don't see it, but I hope he does. Because then if he does give you league average offense along with his league average defense, then you got an average player. And that's all the Yankees really kind of need from him. I'm not asking him for him to be a superstar at this stage, but
It's have respectable numbers. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, I just think that his development, and it's not the Yankees. The Yankees have given him the job. They gave him the job, man. They handed it to him. I can't really blame the Yankees on this one. I just don't think Volpe has taken that next step, and that's on him. But while he's a negative, I would say Austin Wells has been a huge positive.
Oh yeah.
Volpe was meant to be the better prospect. I think Austin Wells is the better prospect. He's offensively he's an absolute machine, leading off, and I actually quite like the idea of him leading off because he profiles as a good on base guy. He profiles as a guy that can hit a little bit of pop, but that can also get on base. And from the left side, he's doing that. So I think he actually profiles as a leadoff hitter. And of all the leadoff hitters that we were debating, none of us thought about it in Austin Wells.
Nope.
And actually, shout out to Aaron Boone. Credit where credit is due.
It's
Found
working.
the right profile there. I quite like him leading off. I think it's a nice part of the lineup.
Yeah, it's the reason I think for me personally, I didn't think of Wells as the leadoff hitter only because as a catcher, they're not in every technically an everyday player. So usually your leadoff hitter is somebody that you can really pencil in 7 days a week, even with off days. But with the off days, I think that's what's made it easier for Wells to adapt. It's not like you have guys playing 162 games a year anymore. So that theory, Wells is kind of putting that theory to rest that, it's got to be an everyday player because he is really playing well in the leadoff spot.
So movie trivia. You have a hole in your swing. What movie did that come from? Mr. Baseball, Tom Selleck. Me and Rob were talking about Tom Selleck. In terms of the facial policy, nothing else.
Yeah, we weren't discussing Tom Selleck in our free time.
Like, wow.
Definitely weren't doing that. But no, you're right about Wells. Like the fact that he's now, it's now the question is who is going to be the leadoff hitter when he doesn't play. Is it going to be Dominguez? Is it going to be
Jazz.
Dominguez? Jazz hasn't really hit this spring.
Yeah, he's also been quiet. Yeah,
There's another guy that I don't know. The Yankees love his pop, especially at the top of the order. I just think at this point he's more of a middle of the order guy. But that's the conversation you kind of need to have is when Wells doesn't play, who leads off? Do they go with Bellinger? Do they try Goldschmidt there? At this point, I'm not gonna knock anything as long as it's not Volpe. He's probably the only one that I wouldn't say put up there. But do they try Cabrera? I mean, we didn't think Wells would work. Everyone kind of looked at like Austin Wells leadoff, and it's worked out perfectly. So I'm not against any option really, except for Volpe because he just needs to stay at the bottom of the order. But anybody else, try it and see if it works. It's just when Wells is not playing. But it's good to see that they kind of figured that out in-house and they figured it out on the fly, and it worked. Austin Wells had that injury last year, and after he got hit in the hand, I think it was, or the wrist, he was not the same player. He's healthy now, and he's killing the crap out of the ball. So I'm a big fan of Austin Wells. We were asking for him to get called up 2 years ago, straight from Double-A. We were saying, screw Triple-A. He doesn't need it. Call him up right away. They didn't do it until late in the season, but I'm happy to see him swinging the bat like this. I'm happy to see Bellinger and Goldschmidt swinging the bat the way they are. Dominguez. There are some positives here. Again, I do think this lineup can be better than most people anticipate right now, but a lot does have to go right. And Austin Wells is one of those things that has to go right, as is Anthony Volpe. If Volpe is just respectable at the bottom of the order, that changes so much of this lineup. Because if he's on base, that leads to the speed. That leads to the creating chaos in the base pass. And I think we can do a lot of this year with the guys we have in this lineup. Jazz, Bellinger, Wells, Volpe, Dominguez. All these guys can run. Even Goldschmidt's a good base runner. So they should be able to create havoc on the base paths, but need to get on base first. And that's what Anthony Volpe needs to work on.
G. Miller's got a point. Yeah, just because you're absolutely raking in spring doesn't mean that you're going to be raking in the regular season and vice versa. I definitely get that. You're right about that. But I quite like it. But Jonathan doesn't like him leading off. And neither does old Sarge. Sorry, gents. Prefer Wells cleaning up. Not sure in this leadoff thing. There's also an interesting suggestion of giving Aaron Judge the 700 plate appearances by having him lead off. But having said that, it's not the craziest thing because he does have insane leadoff numbers, Aaron Judge. And also Ohtani led off for the Dodgers last year. So it's not uncalled for. It's not unheard of either. I prefer people being on base for Aaron Judge, to be honest. So if my ideal would be Aaron Judge's ideal and him batting third, I quite like Bellinger batting second, Wells leading off. But because I want multiple runners on base for an Aaron Judge, ideally in that scenario. But I know the modern analytics prefer batting like leadoff or second, so that he has the most plate appearances. So in that case, it might be a case where we have him lead off because I still envisage him getting intentionally walked a lot. A lot.
Yeah, even if Bellinger and Goldschmidt hit.
That wouldn't happen with him leading off. That's the only thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that happened in 2022 when they had no choice. And that's why his leadoff numbers were so good, because he was the only guy that was hitting.
That's right.
So because it was Judge and then it was like Torres. It's like, well, who would you rather pitch to? Gleyber Torres. And so it's going to be the same thing this year. It's like, do you want to deal with Judge or take your chances with Goldschmidt or Bellinger? And I think anyone with a brain would choose the other two. No disrespect to them. Aaron Judge is the best player in baseball. And then Bellinger and Goldschmidt are like solid players. You're going to want to take your chances with the other two over Aaron Judge. It's just what you would do. It's like if the Mets batted Soto leadoff and then batting after him was like Jeff McNeil or something, you'd probably pitch to McNeil. Not that McNeil's a bad player. It's just you take your chances with the lesser hitter, I guess you can say, over one of the best in the sport. The Dodgers have Freeman and Betts and Hernandez and Conforto after Ohtani, so you can bat him leadoff. But the Yankees don't really have that luxury.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, the way the lineup's going to, play itself out over the last couple of days of spring is going to be, something to keep an eye on. Because there are still questions of how this is all going to, everything's going to iron itself out. As far as the lineup, the rotation, the bullpen, and who's going to make the cut for the roster, which I'm sure we're going to be diving into as the week goes on. And then just give everybody a little tease. Don't forget next week's shows we do our season predictions on the players is something that we always enjoy doing, and keeping the receipts and see how we did at the end of the year. But with that, hope everybody did enjoy spending this St. Patrick's Day Monday with us. We feel lucky that you guys spent all the time with us as well. So you can see Donald's got the green on. I got my shamrocks. I keep them with me all the time. Yeah. So with that, just make sure you hit that like button, hit that sub button, share this out, your friends, your family. The Strangers on the Corner. So this is Pinstripe Chronicles. We hope everybody has a good day. Wear those pinstripes of pride and play hard.